Good morning. Welcome to this beautiful talk today. I do have Miss Lori Branch here with me, the legendary pioneering DJ themselves. My name is Otez. I am a curatorial assistant here at the MCA for Performance and Private Practice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
It's so nice to have you here.
It's exciting for me.
Yeah, you brought all the energy in the room when you walked in.
Oh, yeah?
Automatically.
Oh, wow.
Great. Yeah.
I should bottle that up.
So I just want to dive in a little bit, just about you in general, and just upbringing and start. And I guess I'll have a nice loose question for the day.
Okay.
You ever seen Brown Sugar? You ever seen the movie Brown Sugar?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, the first thing they ask, like, when you fell in love with hip hop? That's like the first thing people ask you.
Yeah.
When did you fall in love with house music?
Okay, that's a really good question. I think before it was called house music, I fell in love with house music. Maybe my first trip to the warehouse.
Wow.
Where house music gets its name, although there's some disagreement about that. But
yeah.
my first trip to the warehouse, 17 years old, kind of coming out to myself and my friends. There's this place you need to go. It's kind of the mecca for LGBT people. We didn't call ourselves that back then. Mm-hmm. We just said gay people. Yeah. And I didn't quite know what that meant, but I knew I was attracted to that energy and that I love music. And I went with some friends and got enveloped in the space, and the energy was not like anything I had experienced in my youth, and realized there's something not about the atmosphere, but about sort of the atmosphere plus the music, the environment, the people. It was a very loving and supportive environment, and the way the sound was curated, the DJ. Everything about it was magical. Yeah. And I think that was the day I'm like, I have to be part of this music somehow.
So talk about that, the warehouse. You're a teen.
Yes.
Sneaking in here.
Sneaking in, yep. Had to be 18 to get in.
How was that?
I was only 17, I was close.
Okay. Did people know you already before that too, or that was just
No, I was just starting to get into the idea of making music. So I had a friend in high school. I went to Lindblom Tech High School in Chicago, in the Inglewood neighborhood on the south side. This was a school for nerds, and a lot of really cool kids who had lots of interests. And I had a great friend named Jean-Pierre Campbell, another one, Eric Bradshaw, who were both into music heavy duty. And so we were listening to the beginning, sort of the end of the disco era, where people were doing mixes on this station called Disco DAI. So that was like 79, 80. There had been some hoopla around, the end of disco with the crazy antics at Sox Park with the DJ back then. And, trying to kill disco because it was this art form that was attracting too many black people, too many gay people, making too many waves across the country. And so there was that energy, and I'm coming of age, I'm 16, 17 in that. And I hear about this great club from my friends who were music collectors as I was. So we would go out, we'd hear music, we'd buy a lot of music. And while we were there, it was sort of at the same time, there were a lot of teen groups who were imitating what they would hear in like the clubs like the Warehouse with young parties for young people who couldn't get in. We technically couldn't get in either, but we would produce these parties for young people. Using the same music we'd hear at the Warehouse, which you had to find. You have to go out and go to obscure record stores and, spend a lot of time and energy. Anyway, we would do these parties and realizing that it would be nice if we had our own DJ because we had to outsource that part of it. My friend said, there are literally no women who are DJing in this scene. You should do it. You love music, you got all these records. And so Jean-Pierre and I decided to set out and learn to DJ, and so we recruited a friend whose name was Jose Gomez. We call him Louis Gomez now, he's a great producer. And he taught us the craft, which was not as easy as it is now. This was not the digital age, so you're using records and very rudimentary equipment to learn how to blend songs and keep a through line and through the entire experience. And so I was hooked right away. Yeah. And so I started like late 1980, 81, like maybe the first couple months I made a big debut, had a big party for a couple thousand kids, and that was it.
Yeah. How was that? How was that first that first set, were you nervous?
Oh, yeah.
Were you ready?
I had prepared myself by doing what we call tape mixes. So tape mixes is sort of like if you didn't have enough money to buy a reel-to-reel, you would just do pause mixes on a tape deck, and you could create I prepared myself. I said, I'm not going to start by messing up. My first song is going to be a remix of a song, my own remix. And so we created a remix, and that kind of got the crowd going, and that helped a lot. But hell yeah, I was nervous. And it was a battle.
Okay.
So back then, the way that you introduced yourself is you got into battles. Like you may not have ever heard of a DJ, and suddenly they're like in a lineup. I'm like, well, who was this? Well, it's a battle. Let's see. So Farley Keith was in it, and I was in it, and I think Steve and Hurley, and a lot of DJs who were very famous, now. We were all teenagers just getting started.
That's beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know in that time there was also this group coming up called The Chosen Few as well.
Oh yeah. They were our DJs before I started DJing.
Yeah. So you had, your Andrea Hatchets, you had your Terry Hunters, your Mike Dunns. But you being the first woman to do it, how was that? And how was that coming up in those times? Was that challenging? Did you meet any challenges in that? Or did people accept the fact that you were just a one-on-one, you were you, and you were here to present yourself in that way?
I think, I was very optimistic and happy to be doing anything and sometimes get paid for it. So I certainly, if there were challenges, I probably ignored them or, had some denial. And I know that there were. I was a part of a very small group, but very supportive, of men who, young men who were teenagers themselves who were supporting me and putting me in a position where I could be a leader. That we think you have this interest and clearly you have some talent to be able to do it because, my partner, John Pierre, was like, I can't do this, it's too hard. And so, why not do that? And so that I felt a lot of love. And from Chosen Few, you mentioned Chosen Few, Wayne Williams, who's one of the founders of the Chosen Few, they called themselves the Chosen Few Disco Corporation back then. Oh, wow. But he was a fan and he was a friend. And he was one of the people who were like, well, it's important that you're out there. And so he would give me opportunities. He created a battle where he's like, well, let's see what you're worth. Are there any other women? This was maybe a couple years after I started. And there were other women who were just starting it. So he would create opportunities for me, as did Craig Loftus, who was part of Vertigo. So I had a supportive group of men and not very many women. I did see women DJing, but they weren't in the disco, they didn't mix music, and it was kind of like a roller, like the DJs who play a record and play another record. And so there were a couple who were very good, at curating music. They weren't sort of crossing over into this other part, sort of this energy, this new energy that we started to know as house music.
Talk about your time at Vertigo, that being like a social club at that time in the 80s. How was it like DJing at that time there in comparison to other places? Because that was, I mean, you can call that like your first residency?
Yeah, I would call it a residency. So we had a pretty regular party at a club called Sours, and we did events all over, but I was their resident DJ. So whenever we did a party, I did that for several years. And it was great. It was special. I was a very happy person, in spite of like kind of the chaos that was all around us. I mean, Reagan was elected, AIDS was happening, people were getting sick, and I'm this kind of excited teenager who's found this new art form and this new group of people who were connected to this new energy. And I haven't, in spite of sort of the world swirling around in all these negative ways that were affecting the Black community, affecting the gay community, it was a time of growth for me. And I look back on it very fondly.
And besides just being a legend in the house scene, you're also a multidisciplinary as well. And reading that you graduated from Columbia College back in 1988, with your focus being on arts and media management as well. And then to find out that you become a very integral part of my childhood and knowing that your name's attached to Wrap It Up.
Oh, get out of here. You knew Wrap It Up.
Yeah, it was so interesting reading that. It's just like, mind blown. I was like, wow, okay. But just tell me more. What was the excitement with crossing over? Just the subject you was talking about that's happening in the 80s, and then having another discipline where you can put those passions to use to just bring a lot of issues that's happening in the Black community in the forefront. Like, how does that work for you? And how do you balance that as well, being a multidisciplinary as well?
That's good. I appreciate these questions. I don't usually get asked these questions about all this other stuff, you know. But I see myself as an artist first. It's kind of the lens through which I operate. And as an artist, my goal is to interpret things as I see them in a way that I believe can connect to an audience. So that is, and that's multidisciplinary. You know, that is art, that is music, that is writing, that's acting. You know, that's talking. It's just a way to communicate. So I have a need to have to share a voice, an opinion. It may not always be mine, but to elevate something that I think is going to help humanity. You know, whether that's just in creating beauty, or whether that's creating an experience like I experienced. I mean, I kind of feel evangelical about the music because I know what it did for me. And like anything that sort of transforms you, you go, this has the potential to transform other people. So then I want to share that. And working in the 90s, when I sort of started to incorporate film and other visual mediums into my work, it was important for me to reflect my reality and the reality of a lot of my friends. So we were partying as teenagers. I kind of stumbled my way through college and finally finished. And I mean, after being kicked out of my house for being gay, after experiencing the death of close friends at a young age, like this, there's more to life than the party. So how do I take my experiences and package that or present that or collaborate with people who have these same interests? How do we educate people on HIV? Especially young people for whom, I was experiencing such tragedy, 24, 25-year-olds who were like dying in a year or two. It was a really crazy time. And so I felt like the best way for me to contribute was to just bring my lens to it, for better or worse, and to work with other people who had similar interests. So Wrap It Up was a cable show. I was doing Hotline 21. It's a cable program where you talk about, different things, and we were doing live question and answer around HIV, because we didn't have drugs back then that would treat people very well. We barely had testing to find out if you were positive. So it wasn't a lot of hope. And the best thing we could do is to educate people. Like, here's how you prevent yourself from becoming affected, how you prevent other people from, here's what limited resources we have in terms of treatment are available to you. And that turned into something else. Working in cable got me very interested in film and television as a medium. And I went to Columbia College, so I was surrounded by that. My girlfriend was a film person, and so we had people making movies in our house all the time. And so it was just a way to combine all those things, to bring the music in. I was doing a lot of hip hop music that was very popular. I do hip hop on Wednesdays, house music on Saturdays. And just a way to combine those elements, for greater good. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. That's so fascinating and so wonderful that you have so much advocacy in your work as well. It's not just you being like having fun or just being passionate about it. You also just advocate so much.
That's important to me. My dad was a minister, and he worked with the most marginalized people in the world. He was a pastor and a chaplain at Stateville Penitentiary, and he taught me that everyone deserves, love and acceptance and second and third chances. And we're not here to judge. We're here. If I'm given all this, many things I've been given, that's a privilege. And for me to not think that I'm privileged, is sort of turning my back on our Creator. It's like, no, you're given that for a reason. You're a steward of privilege. You're not an owner of it. You're supposed to do something with that.
Yeah, you're supposed to be a resource for others.
Exactly.
I was reading, I'm paraphrasing some of your quotes, but when people ask you, what do you think your role is in the house community, in the house scene, you just touched on a lot of what you've already said before. But those quotes to me just stood out. One in particular is, I want to be a model of love anywhere I go. I'm paraphrasing that, so forgive me. But there's another one when you talk about family, you say your family keeps you grounded.
Yes.
And I found that so interesting because I feel like family gets missed in a lot of these conversations. We don't talk about a lot of like where our personality starts from, where our upbringing starts from. So to hear you share that, just very openly and just say, hey, this is where it goes.
It makes
for
me emotional.
And then also another one is how house music has been pretty much just an extension of yourself and that art form. So that makes hearing someone like you have a set so much more special because it's filled with love in the room and it's filled with openness in the room.
Thank you.
And I feel that's for me. I feel like if I go to any house event, that's what I look for.
Yeah.
I look for a welcome invite.
Yes.
Like the first song you hear. It doesn't matter anytime you come in. The first song you hear is a welcome.
Yes, it should be.
Yeah.
I will get a little raunchy sometimes though. Because we want to have fun. So it's a lot of love in the air, but the teenage rebellion part of me kicks up and it's like, okay, just rebel. That's where my techno comes in.
That's your okay. What was that like? So I just want to I'm doubling back a little bit, but just touching on when you have the warehouse, you have house you're starting, and then there's just like a slew of records coming out at that time. What was that like as far as the uproar of artists now considered to be house artists?
Yeah.
How was that for you to be able to, I guess this is like the fun question. What was that like that for you to pick the songs you knew would get the crowd moving from now just a generation of just music coming?
I mean, first of all, when you see your friends, I think about somebody like Chippy. So Chippy, created probably the first song where they said house music, and he was a kid at our parties, who would be like on the stage with us. And then suddenly like, Chippy's got a record out. Jesse Saunders has a record, these are our buddies, and we held our heads up, Steve Hurley, I went to high school with Steve. We rode the bus together sometimes. And so like to see that happening and to be able to play their music, through the 80s and certainly, in the early 90s where it's just so much explosion of it. It's really cool to go in a record store and be like, that's my friend. I knew this guy. Oh, she's singing on that. Yeah, I used to date her, It's like, there's nothing like that, and then to see that it traveled overseas and it's like it's charting in London.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool experience.
What's your favorite? So house has expanded to a point of just like you said, just an explosion. But now there's like so many subgenres of house now. You have Afro house, deep house. I mean, what's your favorite subgenre of house?
You know what? It's a tough question for me because I have different moods and it's different experiences. So I don't know that I have a favorite. I really like soulful house. I can't play it all night though.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can't hear one more singer, I need to hear some drum and bass, And so I do like a variety. I have a bit of a short attention span with music when I'm playing, and I pay attention to the audience. I've had gigs where I had to work from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. And so you got to pace yourself, and you have to have a story, and you have to repeat things because the people who were there at 2 were not there at 9 o'clock. And so you learned how to integrate a lot of different styles in order to have a good night. So it really varies. I guess if I had to, like, if someone was like, you must pick something, I don't know. It's hard for me to do.
Yeah.
Like, I like loungy house music when I'm like working.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeling motivated and I need to run, I want to hear like jungle, drum and bass, tribal, really techno kind of stuff. It gets me going, and I like to mix it up.
I understand. I definitely, I think one one just session of just one particular genre of house, and you're like, okay, like the mood is changing.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Like I need something else now. It's fine. So I want to talk about fashion.
Okay.
So, knowing that we're doing a program next Saturday at DuSable for Nick and Jack Caves, the Color Is fashion exhibit. What was the fashion like in that house scene?
We were very keen on our fashion. It was an important part of it. So much so that like my friends would make our clothes or get them made. Like, Louis Gomez, he was talented. Craig Loftus, very talented. Like they knew how to sew. They would, we had a seamstress make us like these jackets, and so it was showing up. It was really figuring out how to stand out, but also, it's just part of your art. Like you're wearing your art. What does it say for you? My friend John Pierre really loved two-tone everything. So we'd have two-tone shirts, and he would take his pants and dye one leg white and keep the other one blue, or black, or camouflage. So it was really important for us to make a statement, and it was ours. We weren't saying, you got to wear Noma Kamali, although some people did. 80s, she was shoulder pads and all that stuff. But we were like, we're the artists. So what we wear is a reflection of who we are. And there were people who were very much into labels, and that became more and more important in the late 80s and the 90s, and certainly now. But in the beginning, it was like, express yourself, show up how you want. But it wasn't a demand. You could also, some folks came in sweatsuits, and cut off shorts and a tank top or t-shirt, and that was cool too.
Yeah,
who cares? Just do what you do.
I definitely got dressed today in the spirit of house. I was like, get real expressive for this talk.
Yeah, I think this is my work. This is my work from home attire. So.
So, just with that being said, because I know we're trying to keep it close to just 30 minutes. Okay. I already told you before I can sit up here and talk to you.
Ditto.
All day.
Yeah, I love it.
Hardest question of the day.
Okay.
What is your favorite? Well, no, actually, this would be a two-parter.
Okay.
What's your most classic house track you played?
Okay.
And then what's your favorite house track to play in a set?
I'm going to go with two random. Well, one is not random, because it is the most classic that I love the most is Your Love by Frankie Knuckles, Jamie Principles, vocals by Adrian Jett. I like that version of it. It was the original one. And that just never gets old for me. And when I hear it, like I'm at like a little vegetarian restaurant in Brooklyn, and I hear it, I'm like, see, it's God. That's God's sign. Like this is the one. So that's my favorite classic. I like something that I like now that sort of brings me to tears when I hear it is a remix of the song Home. And it's a remix of, the artist is Tracy Hamlin, she's a singer, and I'm forgetting who produced it now, but when I play that song, especially recently, the last few years, I don't know what it is about it, but it just gives me chills. It's a beautiful rendition of it. The song Home from The Wiz. Yeah.
I look forward to having you with us next Saturday in collaboration with DuSable.
Thank you.
For another gorgeous talk with Dr. McNeil.
Yes.
Yourself.
She's great.
You'll have a special guest, Wayne Williams,
Yay.
there as well.
We're talking about.
Yes, so that's going to be amazing. And then a lovely 2-hour set by yourself.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've been thinking about it all week. Like, how does this jive with what we're doing here? I got some great ideas, so hopefully it comes off that way.
You'll see me dancing front row the whole time.
Good.
So.
I'll play Home for you.
So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing space with me here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Once again, Miss Lori Branch, and I'm Otez Gary, and this has been another talk at the MCA.